God is great. So good to be with each of you. Yes. Well, let's do this. Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to remind you something. We have a retreat coming up in, I think, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. First week in November. Please sign up for that. I look forward to being there with you. Yeah, retreats are always deeply powerful. It can help us make a big leap on the path. Yes. So let's do this. I'm going to invite you to shut down your eyes. And I'm going to invite you just to see if you can stop and put everything down. Arriving fully here in this moment. Letting the mind stop completely and fully. Letting the emotional nature, with all its clinging and grasping and wanting and needing, giving it permission just to stop. And can we join together in this space of openness, this space of silence, this space which is awake and aware to itself? And can we simply stop all the craziness, the fantasies of the mind, the grasping, clinging, desiring, wanting everything to be different than as it is? And can we simply stop and be here? Maybe for the first time today, fully arriving and being awake and aware to that which is deeper than the movement of mind, or deeper than the movement of emotion. And so if I ask you in this moment, what is here? What is here? What is truly here? Do you recognize your radiance, your beauty? Do you recognize that which recognizes? Are you awake to that which is awake? And I'm going to challenge you to be here just for the next hour or so. To be here fully, to be awake fully. To the spaciousness, to the silence, to the space in which the sound of my voice arises, the space in which everything arises. Will you join me here? Can you give yourself permission to rest here, to arrive here, to land here, to be this moment? And so from this space of being awake and aware, from a point of clarity, we see what we are, we recognize what we are. Now, if we invite the heart to come forward, I invite you to see with compassion how your human self is doing. Like, how is the human self? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? And not to get lost in the experience of being human. But can we be awake and aware and deeply honest about what's here? Like for some of you kundalini people, you may notice there's a lot of kundalini here, a lot of energy here, a lot of aliveness, a lot of radiance. You may notice in the different chakra centers, there being pressure, or heat, or something giving birth, something coming online. So that's one level of awareness. You could notice in your human emotional nature, in your physical nature, aches and pains, or difficulties, or sadness. And I'm going to encourage us all, if there is any big emotion here, can we see it? Can we see the bigness of the emotion? Can we not turn away from it? And so if there's a sadness here, or an insecurity, or an angst, or a subtle fear, a great fear, it's a funny thing about being human is we tend to have all of these different feelings that move through our body. But often we don't even recognize them. We don't give them any of our attention. We actively ignore them or deny them, try to outrun them. But in this moment, if there's a part of you that is in agony, can you allow that agony to fully be here? If there's part of you or an aspect of your being that is in bliss, can you allow the bliss to be here fully, or anything in between? Can we not squash it with our superego or push it away or fight with it? But if there's something within us that wants to grieve, that needs to grieve, can we grieve? If there's something that wants to laugh hysterically at the paradox of being human, the craziness of being human, can we laugh? Whatever is here, can we allow it to flow within the hugeness of what you are? Not being entangled with it, not being frightened of it, not fearing feelings or emotions or sensations, not fearing our divinity, but allowing ourselves to be the hugeness, to be the openness. And so we're breathing deeply, feeling the hugeness of our mind, the immense love of the heart, and the deep, radiant power, the indestructible nature of our essence. Fully allowing, fully acknowledging, being radically honest both about our divinity and whatever our human self is doing. Whatever the human self is doing. We are deeply honest. And let us start this evening with, if anyone here needs support, Let's call forth the grace of God to be with you, to hold your hand through your process, through your experience, through this moment in time, to hold your hand, to come into your being, to uplift you. And so with that, you can open your eyes if you like. And again, I will welcome you here. Welcome you here. Welcome you here. As we begin to explore and speak about this paradox of being both divine and human. And so recently I'll share that. I've been sitting with myself in this deep and open-hearted way, which is just how I normally sit with myself. Normally how I just rest in a deep and open-hearted way. And, I noticed within me this immense sadness, a sadness that could, could moan, could moan, could grieve, could weep deeply and fully, like this deep, this guttural sadness. It feels like the sadness of from 10 lifetimes ago. It's deep sadness. And I was listening to this fella speak, this shamanic holy man speak about grieving, and just what a beautiful act of love it is to deeply grieve, to open-heartedly grieve. What's this fellow's name? Martin is his name. What's his last name? Prachdel? I could be butchering his last name. Forgive me, Martin. But he was speaking about when we grieve deeply and open-heartedly. It's a form of praising God, of praising life. Of course, it's a form of being radically open-hearted. And Martin was a fellow, he grew up, I think he was born in the Southwest, and I can't remember which tribe he was from. I should know, but he's going to have to forgive me. But he was mixed, he was, he had like a white mother, father, and then, the other half of him was from one of these tribes in the Southwest. And at some point in his life, he found himself down in the villages of Guatemala. One of these villages, I visited it too, this village. I almost died in that village. I can't remember the name of it. Santiago, I think, might have been the name. And he speaks about this practice. Like when you grow up in a tribe, everyone knows your business, and there are no secrets. And so when you grieve open-heartedly, you grieve in the streets, and everyone will come out and listen and grieve with you, partake in the grieving, and support you in the grieving. And, in the culture we live in, we live in this different type of culture. We're not allowed to grieve. I'm not allowed to go, you think I'm a madman. Grieve in this way. You think I'm an absolute madman. I see some of you are smiling. because of the wildness of it. But I'll tell you that this is not an act that's coming. Like, this is not a little, it's not Sideshow Bob that's sharing his grief here. I feel this deep pain. Like when you live with an open heart, there is deep pain every day, because you'll see the immense beauty of this world. And you'll see the dissolving of the beauty, the fading of the beauty. You'll see the destruction of this world, of this planet, even just like driving down the road. And I drove out into the desert this weekend. And right now, here, of course, in the United States, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's fall. And so you see all the beautiful trees and the ending of summer, moving into, fall, but eventually winter. But if any of us reflect deeply on life, we'll see there's so much we have to grieve each day. So much. I kind of had a really busy weekend. I was out in the desert, and as soon as I came home, I took my little girl and we ran to the pool. And at the pool, there was this child. And she just looked over at me. She just smiled. She was just so precious, so innocent. She said the biggest smile. And it's just heartbreaking sometimes to see just the absolute, utter innocence of a child. The utter innocence of a child. This child, she was so sweet to me. She just smiled, broke my heart open. Then a couple minutes later, she asked my little girl to play. Now, on the way into the pool, my little girl was telling me how sad she was because, she got in a fight with one of her friends, and another friend was being really mean to her. And she was telling her daddy, I don't have any friends. And I said this little prayer, well, maybe God will bring us some new friends, sweetie. Maybe God will bring us some new friends. And it was just, 30 minutes later that the grace of God came down into our lives and blessed us. And so when we grieve, like sometimes like it doesn't have to be just about sadness. Sometimes it's just grieving, opening to just the absolute preciousness of life. And how every moment is so precious. And then every moment just dissolves and fades away. And just like that. Just like that. Just like that. And so I'm going to encourage us all to play around with letting whatever is within us that is deep, letting it come forward. And so many of us, we will end our life carrying around with us great regrets, great heartache, people who we should have forgiven, things we should have let go of. But instead of doing that, we held on and we shut these things within us. And we say, no, I'm not going to forgive. Like sometimes we need to forgive our own self. We need to forgive our own self. We need to grieve the fact that we've held on to a harshness, a meanness. And sometimes like there's just old pain within us, and we keep it in instead of going, oh, we don't let it out. We don't be killing you guys tonight. We don't let it out. And you see, like what happens with me is I begin to open to this old grief, and I moan, and then the body shakes, and then it laughs a little, because there's this thing that happens when we open, when we fully open the throat chakra, we fully open the heart. We don't allow that pesky old superego to get in the way and say, no, 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 you can't do that. You can't be a weirdo. You can't be the one making all that noise. You can't be doing this. You can't do that. What will everybody think? They'll think you're a lunatic or a madman. And listen, all of us human beings, if we're deeply honest, we will realize we are all lunatics. We are all madmen. We all are. The things we do to ourselves, the things we do to each other, the things we hold inside, all the ways we distract ourselves from the absolute beauty of life is so utterly crazy. The things we fear, the things we don't say, the things we do say. Like if we just looked at that thought bubble in our mind, like in the cartoons, it says thought bubbles. If we could just see the thoughts that we have, we say, yes, it is true. I am a lunatic, an absolute and utter lunatic. This mind I have that I have taken to be me is absolutely and completely crazy. For those in the Sangha in Ireland, they use this word. They call it being a nutter. Nutter. We don't use that word here in the United States. Someone going to the nut house. It's like all of us could go together, walk into the nut house together, and we could all walk out together as well. That's the paradox of being human when we're deeply honest. And that's the problem with the more we wake up. The more we wake up, we see that being awake is synonymous with being honest, being deeply honest about how difficult it is to be human, how crazy it is to be human, how beautiful and blissful and vibrant. Like I was in the desert and I went climbing with my friends. They are all so wild, my friends, just so wild. And I love them. I love each of them and their wildness, their craziness, their loudness, their obnoxiousness, their dirtiness, their filthiness. I love them so much. And I love looking at these beautiful red Utah rocks and bluffs and cliffs. It's so utterly beautiful. And the fall colors and the beautiful sun, the bluebird sky. There's so much to be in love with. And last night I stepped outside out of my van and just looked up at that massive Milky Way. Just the immensity of the sky, the immensity of the universe. And it's like in the middle of the night, I got up and I could just cry. How beautiful this world is. How beautiful it is. And then despite all this, I could cry because God has been blessing me this last week or so with incredible fatigue, like just crushing fatigue. And it's such a bizarre thing to be in a human body, to be awake and aware, to be this vibrancy and this light, and then to have a body that sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes our bodies they just don't work. And how do we respond to that? Like many of us, we just flood ourselves with coffee, or we tell ourselves to shut up and get over it. we repress it, or we just space out on the internet. But how many of us, like when we feel pain, we give ourselves permission to deeply grieve, or to call out to God, to call out to grace. I had this funny thing as I was rock climbing so yesterday, and I had just horrific fatigue. Like I made it up to the, it's a funny place where we climb, because you gotta kind of like walk up like this very steep. It's like how to describe it. I want you to imagine like a mountain that looks like this. It's like this, so it's kind of like a 45 degrees, or maybe even steeper. And then all of a sudden it goes up vertical. And so we got to walk up, like a mile or so, maybe further up these, up the side of the mountain till we get to the sheer cliffs. And it was like, my God, like, I was like, I don't know if I can just even walk up to the base of the climb. I was having so much difficulty with my body. And then finally, I got to where it was vertical. And we all started climbing, and everyone made it to the top. And I wasn't making it to the top. And I was really flailing, and just my body wasn't working. And, but still, it was just beautiful to be out there. It was just beautiful to be out there with my friends, and just to sit there and to be humbled. And sometimes when we're humbled, we might sit there and we might be having the time when everyone else's body is working. Everyone else is doing great, but us not so great physically. And so sometimes we can sit there and just grieve and just let go and just smile at the craziness of life. Smile and deeply accept. This is where I am. This is what is. And to smile with an open heart and a feeling of crushing defeat. Crushing defeat. And so anyways, we made it back, back to our campsite. And then I came out today, and this time I put my forehead up against the cliff. And I said, God, I can't do this. I need you to do it. Let this climb glorify you. Climb through me. Climb through me. Let's do this together. And with that, all of a sudden, I found myself, I don't want to say running up the cliff, but going up very quickly, and making it all the way to the top. And it was just so beautiful. So beautiful. What can happen with grace? What can happen when we open ourselves to support? And sometimes we forget to ask for help here on planet Earth. Sometimes we get lost and we just try to use our will. And the beautiful thing about our will is sometimes our will is incredibly strong and powerful. And sometimes our will is just not enough. Sometimes it's just not enough. But through the doorway of humility, we can ask for something greater to carry us through. To carry us through. And so anyways, it's a crazy thing being human. In our human life, it is much more difficult depending upon how much we carry on our backs. Things can be much more difficult depending on how much we repress. within our body, within our psyche, within our, like a lot of us, we just repress things down into our belly, down to our hips. Sometimes we repress things and just stuff them behind the heart. And then we have to carry these things. But there's this fun practice. And if you notice yourself like repressing an old sadness, if you open to that sadness and you go, oh, some of it can empty out of you, some of it can release, some of it can just begin to fall off your back, fall off your back. And so, like when I'm, climbing up the mountain with my friends, we have to carry these really big backpacks, with all of our climbing gear, our cams. Those are the things that go in the cracks, that protect us from from falling to our death. And we have to carry the rope, and we're out in the middle of the desert, in Utah, and so we have to bring a tremendous amount of water. We have to bring something to eat. And we have to bring a hoodie or a puffy, a jacket, in case all of a sudden it goes from 80 degrees to snowing sideways, which happens out here in the deserts in the Southwest for some reason. So we have to bring all of our gear. And as human beings, like egoically, sometimes we try to carry all of our emotions with us. We try to keep them in. We try to hide them from our friends and family. How are you doing? I'm doing fine. I'm fine, just fine. Everything's fine. Even though inside I'm full of rage and vengeance or great sadness and fear, we just hold it all within and we tell everyone I'm doing fine. But what if we were deeply honest? You don't have to tell everyone having a no good rotten day. But what if we were just honest with ourselves that, oh my God, I'm having a really hard time, and allowing whatever is within you to come up and out, to empty out of you, to lighten your load. Somewhere along the way, I don't know where it is in our culture that we got this idea that we should not grieve. We're not allowed to grieve. Now, when I was listening to this teacher, Martin, speak, he was saying, well, it's because there was this conference with the bishops, I think he said in 589, where they all got together and they said, we're not allowed to grieve anymore. I don't know why. he's much more of a scholar than me. He said the bishops came up with this idea, we're not allowed to openly grieve because somehow it offended God or something, or offended the Bible. I don't know. That's what his idea was. And that's what has made our culture so messed up. I think it's just human beings are scared. We are scared to show emotion. And it can be scary because sometimes when we do show our emotion, people might take advantage of you. Or sometimes when we're vulnerable and we share something, then they use it against us later on, later on in the day or later on in the week. Sure, we've all been in a relationship like this before, where our partner, we open up and share something. How hard it was for us to have the alcoholic father we had. And then 2 weeks later, our partner saying, the reason you are this way is because you have an alcoholic father. You're like, oh no, I don't want to share with you anymore. I don't want to share with you. And so like the ego has this little protective mechanism where we don't want to share ourselves. We're unwilling to share. We're unwilling to be open and vulnerable because people will use this against us. But there's this problem about being awake. the more awake you are, the more fully you are with yourself, with your humanity. And the problem is you stop caring what other people think. We don't care. We're not worried. Like, I don't care if any of you think I'm a terrible griever. I have a terrible voice. I've been terribly moaning and whining like a little, what did Arnold Schwarzenegger say on Saturday Night Live? A little girly mon, is what he used to say with his skit. We're here to pump you up. I don't know if any of you remember that one, but I certainly do. I don't care. I don't care if anyone calls me this or that. I would rather be open than to be offended and guarded. And so this is the great invitation here. Can you unload yourself? Can you be there for you? Can you love yourself enough to let yourself empty, unload your burden, and to give it back to life, give it back to God, so you don't have to carry this any longer? A couple of months ago, I met a fella, and I asked him if he wanted to be my friend. And so I kept kind of asking him to hang out and with me, and because I saw his heart was just so beautiful and innocent and pure. But there's this unfortunate thing that happened is the more I got to know his egoic nature, I started to see, oh gosh, like this is going to be a problem hanging out with this guy, because his egoic nature was so competitive, like crazy competitive. And he was doing this game. I think it's a game that a lot of men do. I don't know if women do this one so much, but anyone can play egoic games. But he started to play this game where he tried to one up me. Like every time I would say something, he would kind of like one up it, like say something better or something that created like some level of superiority in him. And he kept doing it to me like every time I would speak. And finally, it just got to be like, dang, this is hard for me to hang out with this human being. There's another problem with being awake is you see people's beauty. You see their goodness. You see their innocence. You see their strength. But also, my God, you see their shadow. You see their insecurity. And I started to see like this fella who I was trying to befriend was so utterly insecure. So insecure. And I was talking to my wife about it because she knew him too. And she said, well, basically she said, well, he's just got a big ego. And for a moment, like when I was driving back from the desert, I was kind of reflecting, like, what actually is a big ego? Like, what does that mean when someone has a big ego? Like, one of the most basic things that came to me was I saw that often a big ego simply means that the person is deeply insecure. And it's funny because like we live in a culture where actually we really worship people with big egos. Like those are the superstars, the pop stars, the movie stars. They tend to be the people who are presidents and Congress people, and the ones that get all the attention, the ones that are designing the new app or whatever it is. They're the ones with the fame and the status and the money. And we think often, like sometimes we look at these people and say, oh, they've got it all together. They've got it figured out. And often what it is they've built a very beautiful castle, incredibly beautiful castle. And on the inside of that castle is a whole lot of fear. And they are guarding that castle with their life, not allowing anyone to see how much fear they are in. That there's panic inside. And sometimes, like, we can't see that. We just see the outside of the castle. We say, oh, it's so beautiful. It's so big, so strong, so mighty. I'm nothing in comparison to that castle. There's different ways they flex their castle. Sometimes they drive a real fancy sports car or SUV or whatever it is. They have the shiny shoes, and the beautiful suits, or they dress up in quite a way. But when we're deeply awake, we see through the mask of ego. And we see the same thing that's behind every ego. There's a whole lot of insecurity, a whole lot of fear. And it's an interesting thing. Now, if we look deeper, we might see the person's heart. We might see their innate goodness. We might see their divinity. But it's a funny thing when you see something, like when you see someone's divinity, but they're fully invested in their mask. They're fully invested in their ego. When they look inside, they just feel this insecurity. So they put like they invest all their time in their mask. And they miss the beauty, the depth of their own self. Like they have no idea that it's in there. So it's an interesting thing that people do. They invest so much time in the mask, so much time in the castle. Like if we're a good Buddhist and we look inside that castle, we'll see it's really empty. And for most people, when we look at emptiness from our ego, it's terrifying. When we look at and experience emptiness from the heart, from the spaciousness of the mind, from that which is awake and aware, we realize, oh, emptiness is freedom. Emptiness is liberation. Emptiness is the only permanent thing about us. We see that emptiness really isn't emptiness. Emptiness is actually made of radiance, is made of peace, made of love and compassion. Emptiness is that which fully allows, fully accepts, fully receives. Emptiness is that which is fully through and throughout all creation. It's one of the reasons I love going out to the desert, is because there's immense emptiness in every direction. And these cliffs I climb, they just arise out of this big expanse of emptiness. You go outside at night, you see the whole Milky Way arises out of the great expanse of emptiness, the whole universe is held and is made of emptiness. And you begin to see that this emptiness is big enough to receive all the things that we've carried within us. That we don't need to carry these things to the grave. We can allow it to unload, to dissolve into this great emptiness. Let it be gobbled up by emptiness. And when we are climbing up, one of the little bluffs, I guess it was yesterday. My friend Devin, he said, "Come on, Craig, let's go around the corner." And we kind of like walked along the edge of the base of the cliff, and he said, "Come here, I want to show you a kiva." And we walked. We saw this old kiva. Kiva is it's like another word for house or like room. This teeny little kiva, and I'm sure it's smaller than most of our bedrooms, but it's a place where some of the people that lived there before would store their grain. And it's like, who knows, like when they built this thing, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, maybe a couple thousand. I mean, there's all these petroglyphs all over. They're just so incredible to see. And when you're out there in the desert and you see an old kiva, that's 500 to, who knows, a couple thousand years old. It really puts things in perspective. That this human self will come and go, will turn to dust. Everything turns to dust. That's a beautiful thing you see about the desert, is everything turns to dust. In fact, these cliffs we climb, like sometimes, we climb these cracks. Like so what these cliffs are, it was like molten lava, and it dried really quickly. And because it dried quickly, it created these cracks. They're called splitter cracks, and they'll go up, like a couple 100 feet, and you stick your hand in the crack to climb it, and your feet in it. It's a very unique kind of climbing. Sometimes I'll be climbing up, and I'll get to and like the whole cliff, as you see, like everything that we climb up is just part of the cliff that has fallen off onto the earth, that has crumbled down. So sometimes when I'm climbing up, I'll grab a hold of something, and like a rock will just like explode in my hands. And that's the thing about our egoic nature. We look at life, we look at this world, we look at a thing called a mountain, a cliff, a vertical wall. And our mind shows us this picture of something that is permanent. But just as the Buddha taught, everything is impermanent. And sometimes we just get a little too carried away with our thoughts, with our thinking, the current state of affairs, or current political environment, whatever it is. We forget that empires come and go. Like Joe Biden, he's going to come and go. Donald Trump will come and go. These empires come and go. Even like our inherent youthfulness will give way. to something different. Every thought we ever have will come and go. Our partners will come and go. Our children will come and go. Our parents will come and go. This lifetime will come and go. When we try to hold on to things, we suffer greatly. But to help with the coming and going, it's important to know how to grieve, how to let go. It's important to know how to surrender, how to let the past actually die. How to let the past actually die. I had a woman in my office once, and she was complaining to me on and on and on about her mother, how much her mother drove her crazy, how difficult it was, to live with her mother, to have her mother, just to have her mother as her mother. I guess that's what it was. She kept going on and on and on. And I was like, oh, well, how often do you see your mom? She's like, oh, no, like mom died like 25 years ago. What are we complaining about, my dear? Can we let mom die like she died? She's gone. Can we let her be gone? But sometimes we keep things alive in our mind that no longer are actually alive. We keep this identity of the victim alive, through repeating the story again and again and again. But the quickest way to kill, to destroy, this is just going to be one way I'm going to say it, that victim consciousness within us is to fully grieve. To fully grieve. When you've fully grieved, and grieved all the way to the end, it's almost impossible to be a victim anymore. What grieving does is it brings us into a realm of deep and utter acceptance of what is. Grieving frees us from the past. Frees us from the past. And again, just like the holy man Martin Prechtel was teaching, grieving is a way of praising God, praising the beauty and the preciousness of life. But so many of us, we don't know how to grieve. We don't know how to let go. We know how to hold on to things. Just keep holding on, just stuffing them within us. Until we're so rigid we can barely move. We can barely move. So anyways, if anyone has a question, you can bring it forward. If anyone has something they want to share, you can put it in the chat. If anyone emailed me anything, I didn't get it. I was just gone the entire weekend. Okay, let's hear from Kyle. Let's see what Kyle has to say. Hi, Kyle.
Hey, Greg, can you hear me?
Yeah, long time no see, huh?
Yeah. So kind of to continue our conversation from, what was it, Thursday? Um, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about like how the lineage and Sri Aurobindo view the body.
Yeah, well, that's a beautiful question. Well, just in the most basic sense, this body is a temple in the most basic sense. But if we expand on that a little further, the thing that Aurobindo saw was that we were given this body and we have an opportunity to divinize this body. And through divinizing our body, we're actually divinizing the earth. And in the way that he taught, through opening ourselves to this descent of grace, and inviting God and this radiance to come down into the body and literally transform the matter of the body. And in a similar way, as we wake up to, there's like a kernel, like a seed of truth in everything, because everything is made of God. But as we invite like matter, physical matter, to wake up, then it's like matter is coming alive. So God's coming into matter and matter is coming alive. So these two forces of awakening, these two forces of divinization. And what Aurobindo saw is that this world, like, we all suffer so greatly. So greatly. And just like, but if our body is transformed into light, if the species is transformed into like a species of light beings instead of a species of flesh beings. And the problem with being a flesh being is like at the root of our flesh is this fight or flight thing that makes us still kill each other like we are doing here on planet Earth. Like I was just saw like on my YouTube stream, all these people were talking about the United States getting into war with China and Russia. And it's like, oh my God, like, can we not have World War III? Can we not do that? When Aurobindo lived, we were in World War II. And so he looked out at the great suffering of the planet and said, the only way this world will change, like literally the only way, this is not going to be a political revolution. We've had countless political revolutions. Communism did not save us. Socialism did not save us. Democracy, it's like, my God, with democracy right now, we're ready to kill each other. It's like, so like, philosophies won't save us. Being woke isn't going to save us. Being non-woke isn't going to save us. Like, that's not going to save us. Like Greta, who's doing the what's the movement, the climate change movement, like that girl's not going to save us. What will save us is if human beings open fully and place themselves on the altar of the divine and invite God to wake up in us and to wake up in our minds, in our psyches, in our being, in our presence, which has happened in the past throughout history. And so even Aurobindo said, even that's not enough, because Aurobindo lived in India. He saw all these enlightened sages, but he also saw his country, just being in utter poverty. He said, okay, like we can't just wake up individually. We have to wake up collectively, mentally, emotionally, physically, throughout all the levels of being. When we wake up mentally, then it's at least like our mind can see clearly, like we did in the beginning, where we just stop. We come into awake awareness and we begin to see clearly. We experience the truth as ourselves. We wake up emotionally, out of the fight or flight response, and we wake up into this higher mind of absolute compassion that's beyond the pairs of opposites, beyond, I like Americans, but I don't like the Chinese. We're waking up beyond that. That we're seeing that all beings are worthy of love, all beings are made of love, that everything is love. So this higher vital realization where we live in bliss, we live in love, we live in compassion. And then Aurobindo, he's the one that took it the furthest step of inviting this light to come down into the very fabric of the physicality of the body. So on the level of the cells, on the level of the flesh, on the level of matter itself. So we could transform, that these bodies could become light beings, light bodies. And, throughout India, throughout history, Tibet as well, there's been a number of great sages who transmuted their body into like a light body. But Aurobindo said even this was just happened on an individual level. Like one of the great saints who's come to this lineage is Ramalinga Swami God. His body turned to a light body. And that's incredible. But what Aurobindo invited was for the Sangha to wake up, the collective to wake up. And for some of you, like may think, oh, that's totally crazy and that's a little out there and that's a little too new age. But many of us, like even just within this little song, this humble Sangha, have found that out of nowhere, spontaneously, Kundalini woke up. And there was this tremendous influx of light. And so let us not put a wall between us and God's plan. Like God is waking up in us all, is waking up in this world. And in a sense, like one of the visions of the internet, like before the internet, was that there would be this communal mind that would all come together where everyone would be connected, interconnected in a physical way. And, that's come about in our lifetime. And how incredible is that? But to have the physicality of our body wake up, and again, it sounds crazy, but many of you within the Sangha, with very little spiritual practice, maybe no spiritual practice, all of a sudden this light woke up within you. And that light is here to do a mission. And it's not just to have you be a spiritually realized being. It's for all of humanity to wake up. Like imagine what our world would be like. If we all had a body made of light. We probably wouldn't be chopping down the rainforest. We probably wouldn't be, sending our brothers and sisters to go mine for lithium, in the Congo or something. We wouldn't be treating each other in a horrific way. We wouldn't be butchering each other or creating nuclear weapons that can create tsunamis. It's like, what kind of crazy stuff is this? Like, there's another way to live. And then and again, like just to make it a little science fiction, a little fun, like in this lifetime, we've had this beautiful thing with the internet, but almost certainly in this lifetime, and we're going to find the truth, see the truth, in a clear as day experience, with our alien brothers and sisters or alien beings. I don't even know what you call them. I don't know if aliens have genders, but we'll see that there's these other beings who are far more advanced than us. And it appears they have a different type of body. A different type of body. And they, like when they have come and communicated with people, there was a school, I can't remember where it was, in Ethiopia, where like the spacecraft landed and talked to all the school children, but they just talked with telepathy. And all the kids, it's like all these kids have the exact same story of what the aliens, told them, spoke to them. The aliens didn't even have mouths, it just spoke through telepathy. So it's like they had some kind of mind that was different than a flesh mind. So of course it's possible. Like evolution is happening. This is the next great stage in evolution, is us waking up to having a light body, a body that's not moved by fight or flight, but a body that's moved by love and intelligence, compassion, truth. And so that's the vision of Aurobindo. That's the work of the Sangha. And the way I look at it, just so we don't all get carried away in like some new age trip, is if we just look at our life and we're deeply honest, and we just ask this one question: what is my next step? What is it that I need to let go of? What is it I need to surrender? So like you and I spoke, Kyle, about truth, about you following the truth. Like we all have this choice. Do we follow truth or do we follow desire? Do we follow truth or do we follow fear? Do we follow the truth or do we follow like righteousness? I need to be right. like that's what our world follows now. I need to be right. I need to be right. I need to be right. There was this really wild Filipino guy that I saw today, and just it's like an old friend kind of mine, and yeah, he's like a real loudmouth, and he was just like running his mouth, and he was just saying something like at the base of the climb, and he said just something about just like making climbing great again, making climbing great again. And he was just like running his mouth, having some fun. It's like, do we all need to be so offended if someone says make America great again? Do we have to lose our mind? Or can we just smile and laugh? Can we just smile and laugh and be open? Can we smile, laugh, and be open? Like, what is our next step? Do we need to be righteous? Do we need to correct everyone? Do we need to tell everyone they are wrong? Or can we open our hearts and be loving and kind and maybe a little lighthearted and smile and joke and laugh? Can we speak the truth when it's time to speak the truth? Can we forgive our neighbor if they have a different opinion than us? Can we not just think we need to cancel everyone and go on social media and tell the whole world how wrong this person is? Can we love each other? Like, what if we just started the path with that? Like, what would it mean to love my neighbor? What would it mean to love myself? Like, how about that? What if we started there? What would it mean to love myself? What would it mean to face my fear? So the true teachings of Aurobindo, like if we just make them very simple, is what is your next step? What is the thing that you trip over? Because we could all get real carried away with the coming of the new age and this and that, and think about creating our light body and this and that. Like if we want to play around with that, like the thing that it's like what we do in the second half of our meditation, where we just invite the grace of God to come down and transmute our body. That's the primary practice. We invite the grace of God to pour down into us. Like we can even just invite it right now and just notice, like, do you feel almost like a trickling of light, dancing light coming down through the crown chakra, through the third eye, down through the throat, into the heart? Like I can, even just saying it, I can feel this descent of grace. And how beautiful that is. So kundalini energy, it flows up. That's the energy of the earth waking up. And then there's the descent of grace coming down from heaven. It's like God giving birth into heaven. Excuse me, God giving birth into earth. And so that's the invitation, to be open in this way. But we can make it very practical as well. It's just looking at, do I love myself? Have I forgiven my mother? Yeah, that's a fun one for a lot of people. Have I forgiven mom? Remember like that woman who birthed us? Who birthed us? Who brought us into this world? Have I forgiven mother for not being a perfect mom? There was this woman in my community just the other day where she was kind of in that hippie world, and she just wanted to have her baby at home. And like I had all my babies at home. Like all my kids were born at home. We had a midwife, and it's just, it's a beautiful thing. But this young lady, she thought she'd just have her baby at her house and didn't have a midwife. And I don't know her. I kind of heard this story secondhand, but she got 4 days into that, the birthing process, and that baby didn't come out alive. It's like we all had mothers. We all had mothers who suffered greatly birthing us. And many of us, we just hold a great hatred toward this person, and we may not really know our mothers. We might not know their suffering, their pain, their confusion. I mean, heck, but my buddy who I was climbing with, he told me he actually had to go home. Anyways, he was back at home because his father just passed away. But he said he had like 10 brothers and sisters, and they all came. And the eighth one, the eighth sister, the eighth sibling, I don't know how you say that, went with her children. Like the whole family went. But I want you to imagine, like my friend's sister and her children were staring, like they were walking around in the cemetery, and they found like the grandchild found her grandmother's grave, and she pointed and she said, "Look, Mom, your birthday." Like the little girl was talking to her mother, said, "Look, Mom, your birthday is on the gravestone." And the mother was like, "Yeah, that's right. That's my mom." And so I want you to like kind of like do the math for a moment there. Your birthday is on the gravestone. So like her mother died during childbirth. Like the mother died during childbirth. So here my buddy was, he lost his mom, but he also lost his father recently. And that's what comes, in our lifetime. But sometimes we forget, we just say, ah, like my mom, I was mad at my mom because she didn't have me sooner. Because she didn't have me sooner. All my friends got their driver's license. I can remember complaining to my mom. All my friends had their driver's license. I was the last one to get my driver's license. I was complaining at my mom, angry at my mom. It's like the stupidest thing to get angry about. And my mom's just like, "What the hell's the matter with you, kid? Like, what is the matter with you? What's the matter with you, boy?" It's like, and sometimes, of course, like sometimes our parents didn't know how to be parents, and like you have every right to be upset with them. But at some point, too, part of being awake is saying, I'm going to let this past die. I'm going to grieve the fact that mom didn't know how to be a mom. Dad didn't know how to be a dad. I'm going to grieve the fact that my mother died during a childbirth to me, and it's just crazy the things we can hold on to. Crazy the things we can hold on to. Like at some point it becomes ridiculous because it causes us more harm to hold on to these things than it does just to let go. And the great question, like for all of us, if we look at like the teaching of Aurobindo was basically evolutionary enlightenment. And he was wanting to speed up evolution. So we don't just, because if we don't speed up evolution, we're just going to, all kill each other, whether it's through our divisive politics. I mean, that's probably what it'll be, is our divisive politics and our weapons of mass destruction will end the race. But we can all look, what is my next step? Who do I need to forgive? What do I need to let go of? Can I step more fully into love? Can I stand in the truth? Or am I going to hold on to hatred? Am I going to hold on to violence as a way of being, as a way of relating to this world? And again, like I don't want anyone to be confused around forgiveness. We can forgive someone and still have crystal clear boundaries. Just forgiveness means I don't want to carry them within me any longer. I let the past die. But sometimes, like when people do really harm us, we need to let the past die, but continue to have that boundary of nope, nope, no, I'm not doing business with this person, because it's not wise to. It just creates more suffering. And so forgiveness is the willingness just to let it die, to let it die. Okay. Let's hear from Jan. Let's see, where'd you go? Are you here, Jan?
Yeah, I see. Yeah,
Yeah.
hi.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to mention, Craig, that I've really been enjoying the homework you gave us about a couple of weeks ago. I've been sort of whenever I think of it, making a habit of pausing and taking 3 breaths. And the first
Yeah.
one, just widening to be like the sky. And the second one, just feeling the current, the inspiring, awakening energy of the earth rising up.
Yeah.
And the third one, the descent of grace, and just
Yeah.
feeling like the open space in which the ascending and descending currents are moving. It's
Yeah.
been quite lovely.
I want to thank you for bringing us forward, because like when I was driving back from the desert, I like just made a little mental note. I need to, remind everyone about the homework and see how it's going. And so you must have heard that thought. And so I want to thank you for coming forward and sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little more, like how big do you experience yourself to be?
Well, I imagine feeling my way into being the sky,
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
encompassing everything.
Yeah. And how does that feel to your body?
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels so wonderful, so wonderful. And this is a funny thing to play with, it's just like allowing your consciousness to expand beyond the edges of the body. And for me, this has been a radical game changer, because like often I live in like some level of pain just because I beat up my body pretty bad, and from different health conditions, and I have a head injury and this and that. But you can have all these limitations, physical limitations, but when your consciousness is as big as the sky, like it's hard to complain about anything. It just kind of puts it, pales everything else. It just kind of like makes everything small when you allow yourself to be this big. And then, of course, when we're intimately connecting with God, inviting this grace to pour down into us, there's something that's really personally sweet about it. just like in a real human way that God is pouring down into us. And of course, there's something just radically impersonal about it too, where it kind of wipes the ego away and we feel like this timeless, eternal being. Yeah, well, so beautiful. Anything else you want to share, Jan?
I've also been playing with an image that you used of a million points of awareness waking up in the
Yeah,
body
yeah,
and just feeling that vibrancy. And
yeah,
when I have some kind of an uncomfortable sensation, just allowing the intelligence, the energy of those points of light to take care of it.
yeah,
And they do to some extent
yeah,
often.
yeah. Well, and one of the things too, like the more awareness wakes up, like sometimes, like if we have, like, let's say we have pain in our heart, when you feel into that pain, especially if you're kind of having this sense that, you know, these million points of light within, you see that even the pain itself is made of these points of light. And like when that shift starts to happen, then we really start to like wonder, like, what is pain? Like, is it something I need to fear, or be afraid of, or contract around? Like when your pain starts to wake up and to realize itself as light, you know, that really kind of does this like non-dual flip within the psyche of, like, the mind's always thinks, like the egoic mind is like, pain is bad, I don't like the way it feels, it's uncomfortable. But when you realize that pain is made of light, and when this light is awake and aware to itself, it's really hard for pain to exist in a way where it is wrong. Now, I want to be clear, like it may still hurt or it may still ache, but when it's made of light, it's like it just really starts to break down, and then like the nervous system is no longer fighting with it. And like the big thing with, you know, the difference between being awake and not awake is when we're not awake, we're always fighting with something. We're fighting with things that don't feel good. We're fighting with discomfort. But when you are awake, not only do we not fight with discomfort, but we begin to recognize that, oh, even discomfort is made of light. And that really causes the ego to kind of come crumbling down when it realizes, oh, pain is made of light. The people I hate are made of light. The people on the other end of the political spectrum for me are made of light. It's, you know, my past is made of light. The present is made of light. The future is made of light. Like, it's like everything is light. It's like, what is the past? What is the future? Like, what is, you know, thoughts, memory, trauma is made of light. Like, it's, everything begins to break down. You know, when you start to wake up in the way that you're describing, where you see, where you experience, you know, these trillion points of light within. Waking up, because it's like, well, where within me is not light? Like everywhere is made of light. And it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Well, thank you, Jan, for sharing. Yeah. 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 So nice to have you here. Yeah. All right. Well, beautiful. Well, beautiful. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to call it a night. It's so lovely to be with y'all. Please sign up for the retreat. Okay, I said that. And let's do this just before we're done. Let's close our eyes and just allow our consciousness to expand. The right and the left, front and behind, above and below. Allowing ourselves to live way beyond the edges of the body. To know ourselves beyond the edges of the body. Maybe flooding the room, your home, expanding out on the horizontal plane. Just being this hugeness. in every direction. In every direction. And from being this hugest, we call forth the grace of God more fully to come into our lives, flooding us with grace and light in this moment. And even kind of scanning your body, just noticing if there's anywhere that is tight or tense or could use some more love. Inviting this grace to pour down and begin to transmute anything that is old or stale or tight or tense, anything that is divided or divisive, flooding it with light. And then feeling deep into the heart and the fabric of the body, material of the body, inviting this body to spontaneously wake up. This fiery radiance, 1,000,000,000,000 points of light. A 1,000,000,000 points of light. Waking up from within. And so, my friends, go forth, sharing your love, your light, your beauty with this world. Good to be with y'all. So much love to each of you. Good night, everyone.